This is Floral City. It's a place where you can relax and just be exactly who you are. There are no dress codes here. There's no status quos to stress you out. It's actually like stepping back into yesterday. Trees blowing in the breeze, the flowers on the porch boxes of the historic homes, and our come on in attitude and friendliness make this place of Floral City graceful, laid back, and beautiful. It's a hidden treasure of Florida's nature coast. Here in Floral City, we might be a small town, but we have old things to new things, barbecue to beauty, flowers to fishing, rails to trails, and fine arts to frog legs. We've got just a little bit of everything here in Floral City. It's our historic country culture. Welcome back, friends. I'm really glad you could join us today for another episode of Floral City, the Real Old Florida. In the last show that we did, we saw Floral City from the lake's perspective, from the beautiful Lake Salapopka. And we had such a good time and we got so much information that today we're going to do that again. So we're going to talk some more about that today. We're going to talk about some of the industry that was here on the lake and the agriculture and some of the things that kept the peoples going here that camped and lived right here on the shores of Lake Salapopka. Well, let's go on over to the lake where we can catch up with Mr. Tom Ritchie and Parker, our fishing aficionado, and see what's going on over at the lake today. Come on with us. So now here we are in the middle of the lake, getting to travel through the lake, and I'm just going to be quiet for a half a second, which is hard for me. But you really have to listen hard to hear people when you're out here. A lot of times when I'm out here fishing, I'll do that, and I'll try to kind of squint my eyes and see maybe what the Indians saw or why they appreciated it here so much. I mean, this place is not just since pioneers. This lake and its shores have been homes to people we've talked about forever.
Yeah, for people who've been living here we have evidence of people from at least 14,000 years ago right here.
That's fantastic.
And perhaps even earlier than that. But that's Duval Island.
Right.
And you can imagine the paradise that must have been with the long convoluted shoreline and big oak trees on the higher ground.
Lots of
peninsulas. And we know from archaeological evidence and the writings from Spanish conquistadors who came here in the 1530s, 1540s, that there was a major Indian village right over there near the shoreline.
Right, Tecaste.
Yeah.
Now I read somewhere where this might have been, Tecaste might have been almost like a seasonal somewhat place that they would go in the one.
It's thought that these may have been the same people who were going to the Crystal River area.
Yes.
So during the winter they would live over there and be collecting oysters and shallow water shellfish.
Right, shells.
And they built those huge mounds, and then during other times of the year they would migrate over to here. Yeah. The pre-Columbian Indians they were here for most of the year because this is the land of plenty. Imagine what it must have been like with
corn and
deer and of course growing corn or they called it maize, of course, and pumpkins and beans and the like that they were growing here. But then during the winter, during the dry season, everything would fold up, and so they would move over to the Gulf Coast where they could live off
the stuff over there fresh.
Marine resources,
And these are people, these Indians and Osceola and the different generals that were here in the De Soto, the conquistadors, these are people we read about. And forgive me, I'm going to go child here for a second, but we read about them in our history books when we're kids. It's somebody else. It's great, but it's out there, and they're not. Yeah. They're right here. They've experienced the same kind of things we do, and I think that's kind of cool. It kind of pulls us back into history a little bit. It gives us an appreciation of what it is.
Well, it's great to have visitors come in and look around and say, oh my gosh, I had no idea. This is really exciting.
Yeah.
And little Floral City,
We have, like I say, we're eclectic. We have art, we have things that we are truly a hidden gem. And this lake is our secret.
Yeah.
This is Floral City's secret. Everybody has their secret gem. Citrus County has lots of them. This lake is something that not a lot of people have experienced outside of the locals or people that would come to visit.
And that's the way we like it.
That's the way we like it. We want you to come, we want you to enjoy, but we want you to leave it just as you found it, because this is the way that it was made, and this is the way it's supposed to be to sustain all of us.
This is a great place to take advantage of Spanish moss. Look at it in the trees over there. I mean, it's a natural part of our ecosystem. These bald cypress and live oak trees wouldn't look right if they didn't have Spanish moss.
They would look naked.
Yeah, and it breaks my heart when I see advertisements in the newspaper of some organization, some company saying, call us, we'll get rid of the parasites in your tree because these are damaging the trees. That is an absolute falsehood. They're not parasites, they're epiphytes, and they just grow on the branches. You can see them on power lines, and they're obviously not sucking juices out of power lines. They're not damaging these plants at all. In fact, they have co-evolved with one another. And to see these cypress trees with the Spanish moss hanging out, that just makes them more stately, more beautiful. And when the wind is blowing, and it's extremely useful. This was one of the industries of Floral City.
Right.
Spanish moss, when you take it fresh off the trees, is kind of greenish and soft, and then if you put it on, what people used to do is they put it on a big pile on the ground and keep it wet for several days or weeks, and it would rot off that outer surface covering and then leave a stiffer, thin, black fiber that we called horsehair. So anything that you had that was stuffed with horsehair, it wasn't really stuffed with hair from horses, it was stuffed with processed Spanish moss. In fact, Henry Ford was the one that maintained our industry for us here for a long time, because Spanish moss is packing material for the crates of car parts. And then when it got to the factory, they would take the parts out of the crates and then use the packing material to stuff the cushions in the car. So all Model T Fords had Florida Spanish moss fibers in it, and it was called horsehair.
That's great. I had no idea about that part.
So yeah, it's a very important historic industry for the local people of Floral City, but it just looks beautiful.
Stay tuned. When we come back, we'll have more of Floral City, the real old Florida.